Recently, I was privileged to be one of the faces featured in photographer Dani Allen's exhibition, Real Beauty Uncovered. Different women of different ages, races, walks of life, each individually photographed at the same time of day in natural lighting with no makeup on. And the photographer Dani Allen interviewed us on what beauty is, what we feel is beautiful about ourselves, what we think beauty is in general. I talked about the divine light that shines from within through our talents and our personalities and our souls. You know, that's beauty. Different than glamour, different than, you know, what you see on the red carpet. Those are styles of beauty as well, but exclusionary. You know, only certain people get to feel that way and be lauded by the public as, you know, beautiful, society's beauties. Taoism says if you name something beautiful, you know, this is attributed to Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching. If you label something beautiful, you've created its opposite. You've created not beautiful by naming something beautiful. But Confucius says, see beauty in everything. What one might think of as not beautiful is. So be able to see that. Cultivate an eye for beauty in all things. I like the latter. I like the idea that there is beauty, there is hidden beauty. So Dani was interviewing me, and she asked me about the different videos I make, and I said, well, I talk about life lessons, I teach spiritual lessons, spirituality, I'm a religion professor, I give lessons for my students, I talk about weight loss surgery and the effects of it. I've had 3 weight loss surgeries. Eating disorder recovery, addiction recovery, and being a daughter of a narcissistic mother. And those of us who are daughters of narcissistic mothers understand the challenges of recognizing what we lived through, naming it, finding others to affirm that wasn't it wasn't normal. Not that we know anyone who's normal, but that level of suffering has led to our needing a special type of recovery as adults. And Dani asked me to speak about how I moved from being a victim, if you will. That's not really the word we used, but from one place to another, from the suffering to the enlightenment to the setting of boundaries. Now, if you were raised by a narcissistic parent, chances are, as an adult, you had other difficult relationships. You may have become entangled with other narcissists or with borderline personality individuals with borderline personality. You yourself may suffer from borderline personality disorder, or maybe you are an enabling, people-pleasing, helper-fixer type who has to constantly be working on someone or something in order to feel, you have purpose in life. In order to feel good, you have to be doing rather than just being. John McMullen and Shari Schreiber talk about this phenomenon. The needing to do rather than just be in order to feel lovable. And what moved me was from one place to another, from these patterns of relationships to awareness, to making better choices, was suffering. I was suffering so deeply and so badly. I had a series of abusive friendships. A boyfriend who lived with me who was not kind. He had many narcissistic traits, if not a full-blown narcissist. It just seemed the norm when you're raised by someone who has that personality disorder, it's you don't recognize it as being something you need to run from, but rather something you need to endure. It's a matter of having a very low self-worth, low self-esteem, not having boundaries, not having had your boundaries respected ever. And I was in so much pain from a recent friendship that involved a prolonged devaluation period and an abrupt discard. It left me searching for answers. Why did this happen? Not just to focus on the person who did it. Though that can be enlightening, I don't recommend you stay there for very long. Learn about the disorder, whether it's narcissism or borderline, learn about it. Recognize the traits. Recognize that you're being on the receiving end of it, or in a relationship with a person who has the disorder, is not your fault. But also recognize that the way out is to change yourself so that you don't get sucked into another chaotic, painful relationship. All right, but what Dani asked me to do is, well, what? Was there an aha moment? Was there a turnaround moment? Well, I had actually been researching the disorder while I was in this painful, painful relationship and being gaslighted and not acknowledged, and the people, around being made to believe that I was the crazy one. It was a disaster, but it was a way out of pain. And then after the discard, I was so devastated. I can't say I was barely functional. I functioned through quite a lot of pain in my life. Why? Because when it's the norm, you become real skilled at it. It's just, that's the way it is, to constantly be suffering. And beating yourself up mentally and blaming yourself. And shouldn't I have known better? And what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something to provoke this. And, well, if I'm a victim, it must be because I lied down like a doormat. And how could, the self-blame and the self-punishment. Oh, I'm still learning to not do that, to catch myself and to not beat myself up over anything. But it was the research, everyday reading. I read Shari Schreiber. She has a master's degree. She is a therapist. You can find her articles online for free. Extensive articles on borderline personality disorder. I'm on the spectrum of that. I say on the spectrum because one of my master teachers said, no, you don't cause that much pain in people's lives. And no, but I do fit the description. He's like, well, you're on the continuum then. Okay, I'm on the continuum. So, but also you recognize the borderline traits in others, starting with my mother. And the authority on narcissistic personality disorder, I would say, is Sam Vaknin. I believe it's spelled Vaknin. He's brilliant. He is a narcissist himself, but he's self-aware. And so he can write about it. Brilliant stuff. And there's other really good websites. There's plenty of, just look up the different support groups on Facebook. Some of those are excellent, and they post articles daily. Out of the Fog, I believe, is a blog that talks about NPD. And right here on YouTube, there's plenty of discussions of narcissistic fathers, narcissistic mothers. So research every day. I've read enough articles to get a doctorate. Yeah, I've done a lit review. And I continue to read to remind myself of how to set boundaries, on how to have self-respect, on how not to be love-bombed again in the future, or to turn anyone into an idol. Yeah, an idol, as in, don't let anybody be in charge of your self-esteem. Don't let anybody's approval be such nectar for you that without it you fall apart. Yeah, certain people's attention is going to make you feel really special because it's so different from what we grew up with. Just be careful of that. It feels good in the moment, but people change. It's unstable. It's not a stable source of self-worth. I recommend establishing your own value, establishing your own self-worth, establishing boundaries, taking care of yourself in a way that makes you want to spend time alone with yourself. If you're a religious, spiritual person, then you can tap into the source, you tap into the divine, you tap into God, you tap into something that's eternal and unchanging as your source of strength and worth. Much better idea. See, we've been raised to believe that it's what we do that makes us lovable rather than what we are. And so we need to create the habits and associations that affirm that what we are just by being is enough, good enough, lovable, worthy of respect. So that was it, Dani. Research, awareness, catching myself in old patterns, making new choices, making these videos, hearing other people have their, oh wow, me too moments. Me too moments are excellent healers. They take the stigma off of what we went through. They take the shame off of our experiences. And they give us hope that we're not alone, not isolated, and that we can help one another recover. Yeah, we can recover. We can do more than recover. We can blossom and grow. Maybe it's happening now a little later in life than we'd hoped, because you want to blossom and grow when you're young, but this happens for many people. Middle age brings a wisdom and an awareness and a healing. So, me too moments. And hope. And not blaming yourself ever again.